Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Rise and Recreate podcast, a space where we explore the courage it takes to rebuild your life from truth, not from survival. Today, I am joined by Dawn Elle Davis, a channel, healer, and transformational mentor, and the co-founder of All Within, a storytelling platform devoted to demystifying healing and holistic transformation. Through her future self-embodiment work, Dawn supports ambitious women in releasing trauma, subconscious patterns, and inherited beliefs so they can step into aligned success, conscious relationships, and deep self-trust. She blends intuitive guidance with grounded, trauma-informed practices, helping people heal forward and return to wholeness. Dawn, I am so excited. I have been so looking forward to our conversation today. And before we dive right into it, I would love for you to just introduce yourself and tell us a bit about where you are today.
Yes, thank you for having me, Raechel. And we're doing it on such a special day, so I love that. Where am I at today? I'm in Boise, Idaho. I've been a Californian my whole entire life, and I left San Diego a couple of years ago after 33 years to join families with my now husband. So it was quite an adventure, and it's taken me a while to get used to moving states. I still have FOMO when I see my friends on reels in San Diego and the weather's gorgeous. And I'm like, wait, why did I move again? Oh, wait, I'm in love. Okay, that's right. And so sometimes I have to remind myself when I see but it's still pretty new, starting a new life, new community, uh, in the Boise area while still doing my work is deepening and changing because I became the embodiment of the future self that I wanted to be a few years ago. And so once I did that, I had to stabilize and integrate that. And now I'm working on new things that I want to do. So it's been a wild and interesting ride because I hadn't moved since I was leaving for high school, to come to San Diego. So it was a long time of being in San Diego. And, it's when you move, it's a little bit of it's a fresh start, that whether you like it or not. Like you're leaving things behind and you're going to be trying to figure out who you are in this new place.
Absolutely. And so I'm very excited to journey back into your past and find out how you came to where you are currently, because it sounds like you just went through the process of recreating your life again. So take us back, way back in your life when you when you felt like you were living a life that maybe wasn't truly yours, where you were living from patterns that you had developed from childhood, and what broke you out of that? What did that journey look like for you?
Well, I have a few of those, but I'll do one of the furthest back. I was in my early 30s, and on paper my life was really amazing. I was a pharmaceutical rep and I was a trainer for them. I was making incredible money. I was traveling all over the United States. Uh I was getting married. I was investing in real estate. I mean, I was just like doing all these things. And I've always been a go getter. And so that time in my life, I had to beat out like 100 people to get the pharmaceutical position. And I remember even then just being so motivated. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And I didn't even know what manifesting was back then. And I just remember like being in a mirror at the hotel before my interview. And I was like, you're going to get this job. This job is yours. And I was like hyping myself up because I knew how competitive of a market it was to be a rep in San Diego, especially in specialty. So I was living that life, and such a big piece of that life was doing what I thought I was expected to do. I wasn't really tuned in, although I really did want to do pharmaceutical sales. Like, for sure, that was a big piece of it. But all my friends at that time, starting, I think, when I was 25, everybody was getting married. Like, I think I was a bridesmaid in 8 weddings. And yeah, I was really popular and had lots of friends. And so I was, spending all this money traveling, doing all these things for bachelorette parties and all this. But I felt this impending kind of almost doom of like, oh, I guess I need to get married too. I guess I
Mhm.
need to settle down. But if anybody follows astrology, I have a stellium in Sagittarius in the ninth house, which means I am a freedom loving person that was going to take a long time to grow up and mature. So I didn't listen to that part of me. And I wound up getting married, which I do not regret. But the way I knew I was out of alignment was because I started to experience lots of anxiety and lots of stress. And I thought it was just for my job. I was like, oh, this job is really stressful because you always had like numbers you had to make. And for the first few years there, I was the number one sales rep in my division for a couple of years. And so I remember a few years into living that life, I went to one of the doctors in my territory and I asked her, I was like, hey, I don't know what's happening to me, but I feel so off for some reason. I didn't have words to even explain it yet because I was just new on my spiritual path. I just knew I wasn't happy. And because I was conditioned by being in pharmaceutical sales, I was like, what medication could you give me to help me just get out of this pain that was turning into suffering? And thank God she was a unicorn. And she looked at me and she's like, how old are you? And I was like, I think at the time I was like 30 or 31. And she's like, you're already experiencing such a debilitating stress at this age. She's like, ugh, Dawn. She goes, I'm going to suggest that you do 5 things. And these 5 things, if 6 months from now it doesn't change, then we'll talk. We'll have a different conversation. But I want you to start changing your nutrition. I want you to work out. I want you to get massages. I want you to see a chiropractor. And I want you to see an acupuncturist. And you don't have to do all of them, but definitely choose a few. And I decided to go see an acupuncturist out of that list. And I did change, I was going to the gym, doing all these things. But when I went to the acupuncturist, she had me on a table and I will never forget because she was old school. She was so amazing. She barely spoke English and she was highly recommended to me. And she put her hands over my body. And in the intake, I had only told her I was going for my migraines because I didn't think to even say I was having stomach issues, which I was. And she put her hand over my stomach and she's like, ooh, oh, yeah, what's going on here? She's like, you don't like your job. You don't like your life. What's happening? You're stuck. Your energy's so stuck. And I was like, what is she talking about? I'd never told anybody I don't like my job. I never told anybody I don't like my life. And I got really confused because I thought to myself, I'm like, do I not like my life? Because I was so distanced. I was so programmed and I was just on autopilot. Even though I was having fun, I was traveling the world, doing all these things, there was this silent voice inside of me that was like, you're not in love with the person you married. This job does not totally work with your constitution of like how I handle stress. Like there's all these things happening, but on paper, it was so confusing because everybody's like, oh my God, you have this amazing life. Like, oh my God, you get to do all these things. And I'm like, yes, I do. And why does it not feel right? And it was terrifying to admit to myself that I had made choices and decisions that were not aligned with my heart. And so simultaneously to doing that, I think at 30, I'd always been into all the metaphysical stuff. And so I had started taking classes it was a year-long program it wasn't to become a clairvoyant, but it was a clairvoyant program. And I took it because I just loved everything in that arena, intuition, energy. So I was already opening up to my gifts at that time, but I've been taking that program. And I remember that teacher saying to me, who you are when you start this and who you will be at the end are going to probably be two different people. Like things may be revealed to you. So as I was taking that and I started to finish that program, I was still in my marriage. I was still doing the pharmaceutical sales and, trying to kind of work and figure out after seeing this acupuncturist what was going on. And I think that program changed my life too because of the work I do now. But what it made me realize is there was so much that I wasn't wanting to see in my life. I didn't want to see the truth. I didn't want to admit to myself that I had put myself in a corner. Like I backed myself into a corner and I created this life that somehow I was going to have to find myself to exit it and figure
Mhm.
out, like, oh my God, how am I going to break this man's heart?
Yeah.
How am I going to ruin this home that I just bought and all these other like all these things that I had built? There was this feeling of like, oh my God, I think I'm gonna have to, it's gonna have to be torn down. And it was the first time in my life that I had to decide to follow my own heart. And I didn't do it in a way that was pretty or put together. I did it in a way that was more just trying to get out of something. And so I was never proud of how I went about that. I didn't have the consciousness or the maturity at that time to do it in like this, like put a little bow on a package. It wasn't that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was literally like I took a hand grenade and I threw it into my life, and the explosion was the aftermath of what was going to ensue. And none of my friends at that time were getting divorced or making any choices or decisions like that. They were having kids. They were like,
Mhm.
I'm still best friends with some of these people to this day, and their kids are graduating college and all these kinds of things. And but at that time, I had to go against the grain. Like it was it was a deep understanding of, oh, I'm not like everybody else. And maybe I never have been. And I've been trying to fit into this box and do what everybody else is doing. And unbeknownst to me, I'm freaking not supposed to be here. So it was quite a journey to to eject myself from that life. And of course everything worked out, but it was the beginning of starting to learn about who I was and
Mhm.
to kind of rip off the veil, the illusion that I was living under, where there is many illusions that I've uncovered over my life, but that was the first big illusion of like, oh wait, I chose to create a life without fully making sure it was congruent with who I am and what I want. I didn't even know what I wanted because I was
Mhm.
following a program.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it was a big awakening for me.
I think I related so deeply to that. I also had an awakening and then threw a grenade on my life and completely blew it up. And I think it is because so many of us are conditioned to just grow up and live life in a certain way without even questioning it. Like, what is it that I actually want? Who am I? And also then in hindsight being like, I understand I didn't have the tools then to exit gracefully, and it was, like, necessary to cause that chaos to exit that version of yourself. So,
Mhm.
I'd love for you to talk to us about that. Like, what did it feel like after you blew everything the fuck up? And then you were like, great, now what do I do? Like, who am I? What happened when you started to question yourself? What were you asking yourself to even find out what it was your heart truly wanted and who you actually were at that point in your life?
That's a great question. I Well, first I just wanna say for anybody listening to this, so much compassion needs to be extended to former versions of ourselves for how we operated at that time. Like, that's something I always teach my clients. It's like, who you were then is not who you are now. And when you look back and still to this day, I have these feelings of like, oh my God, I wish I would have done that better. I wish I would have used my voice in different ways. I am still friends with my ex-husband, to this day. And I've apologized and, we've had all these conversations. But I think what happened when the hand grenade, I threw the hand grenade in is I wound up getting divorced and kind of starting a ripple effect where people that were unhappy were very triggered by me because they're like, oh, whoa, she's choosing something different. Like she's not staying. So that was really interesting how it impacted some of my friends around me. And I didn't understand at the time, but it was because I was highlighting something in them that was unhappy and wanted to maybe leave or do something else. So that was really fascinating to me. But for the most part, my friendships stayed. I had great support, and I kind of saw it as a journey. I was excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I get to be single. I get to do this right. Like, I got to figure out. But what I didn't understand was going to happen because I moved into this like fabulous condo in Little Italy in San Diego. It was just incredible. I had such a fun social life. I was going out, I was dating. And looking back, I don't think that I was asking exactly the deeper questions. I think I was wanting to have fun and wanting to find myself through that. I've always had a deep side to me, but I was more just trying to figure out like what's next for me because I didn't have much time to think because I got divorced, I moved into a new place, and then I got laid off from my job where I was making this incredible that was part of my identity at that time as well. And so I felt stripped of the person who I had been operating as. So it was so much deeper than like, oh, I'm just getting divorced. It was like, oh my God, I have this really expensive condo. I need to figure out some things. And then it's like the perfect storm. I always look back at these things. I was at the top of my game in pharmaceuticals. And so what I made in a base salary or no, I should say what I made as a bone in my bonuses and all that kind of stuff was more than most people's base salary. So when I went to go look for jobs, I was kind of opted out where people they give you personality tests because they want to know what drives you. And I'm very driven by recognition and money at that time. And so they were like, oh my gosh, we can't even hire you because the money that we're offering isn't going to give you enough to like get to make you be motivated. And so so the universe kicked me out of that industry. I
Literally.
felt that way at least. I was like, oh my God, I can't even stay in this. And this is my identity. I was really sad. I was really sad. And so I had to kind of trust that there was some higher plan that was operating behind the scenes, that I was going to find my way. And it catapulted me into doing new things. Like I started doing readings on the side. I wound up, of course, finding another sales job and it was, led me into other things. And so everything worked itself out. But if I'm being very transparent, I didn't ask as many of the deeper questions as I should have because I feel like maybe if I would have done that deeper work back then, I would have maybe made some different decisions or like stopped and paused a little bit more. But I don't regret that. It was like it wasn't like I wasn't having fun or didn't have a good journey. It was just that it took me a little bit longer to probably arrive to where I wanted to go because I didn't have the clarity to understand exactly what I wanted next.
Hmm. I think that is where a lot of people get stuck to is either they don't know what they want, they do know and they don't believe they can have it, or they want so many things that they get kind of caught up in this tornado of desire and then they're like, "Oh gosh, I don't know," and get overwhelmed and just stop. And so during this part of your journey, you were still doing that class, you were getting curious about energetics and intuition. And what did that look like for you? Like, did your beliefs start to change? What did it feel like when you started to tap into your intuition? Did you start to get clearer visions of what it was you actually wanted in life? And then how did that affect the next part of your journey?
Well, being who I am, I took that program for a year, and then I wound up realizing in that program that I was gifted at channeling. And so I decided to print up business cards. I'm a go-getter. Like when I decide I'm going to do something, I go full throttle. And so I printed up business cards. I started handing them out to my friends. And within a couple of years, I had a whole side business. And so I was doing sales, but then I had this side thing that I was doing, and I was a very good networker. And so, I'd go see my massage therapist and she'd be like, "Oh my gosh." And I'd say, "Hey, do you want me to give you a little reading?" And I'd start like doing a little reading. And then she's like, "I'm going to refer people to you." And then a PT would do it. And then a therapist in town would do it. And before I knew it, I wasn't planning this, but I was like a lot of people's go-to for referring for intuitive healing sessions and all this kind of stuff. And so I really believe that when we follow our heart, that doors open up. And that's what happened for me. These doors opened up, but I wasn't ready to go full time with that. I was just having fun. I was enjoying learning about people and doing this work and learning through trial and error how
Mhm.
to even do intuitive healing sessions and make them impactful and all this kind of stuff. And so during that time frame in my 30s, my intuition, I've always had really strong intuition. I just didn't understand how to harness it or use it. And I did see, of course, I saw things for myself. I could feel a lot. But looking back, those things helped me. But I think it was later in my life when I learned how to regulate my nervous system
Mhm.
that my life really opened up and changed because I believe we can be wildly intuitive and do all these different things. But if I could give advice to anybody that's like on a healing path, it would be like start working on your body's ability to feel safe so you can receive more. So you can receive more intuition. You can understand and have the clarity of what it is that you want to do in your life. Like take the time to pause.
So it sounds like when you really felt your intuition start to come online and you started to trust it, which is key. That's when things really started moving and opening for you and you trusted that you could like follow what it was your heart was telling you to do. So for people listening who are just now starting to get curious about their gifts and their intuition, but they still don't fully have the belief that they can trust it yet, what advice would you give them?
I see it as a muscle. Just like if you're going to go work out at the gym, you have to train it. And so I think the more that, especially if you're new to intuition, figuring out how you receive the information, because some people have visuals, some people feel it in their body, some people just know something, and then figuring out a way to record it. And like whether it's in your phone to say, "Oh, I just got this thought or this hit that this is going to happen," or whatever information it is, like record it somewhere because oftentimes we'll forget. We'll be like, "I think
Mhm.
I thought that, but I'm not sure." So recording it and then figuring out if there's some action to take around it because you want to build it. You want to create a relationship with your intuition and your body's ability to receive because we are all channels. I just happen to train in it and do thousands and thousands of hours in it, so I'm an expert at it, but most people everybody's intuitive. And so I think the more you exercise it and say, "Oh, I wrote this down. Okay, what is this? Is this asking me to do something or pay attention to something? Let me do that. Let me implement." Then you start to build trust in yourself.
Mhm.
It starts to become more of a foundation of who you are. And then you start to listen to that before you ever listen to the external world. And this is something I always teach my clients, like your channel and your ability to receive your own information is so much stronger than anybody else out there, right? Sometimes we need help coming back to ourselves. Sometimes we get a little out of alignment, and that's why we get a reading or we get healing work or coaches and therapists and all that, because we need support getting back to who we are. But
Mhm.
when you are in that space and you're receiving, trust that over anything else.
I love that. And so this is a journey that you're taking us through that was a while ago in your life. And now here you are still working in sales. Your curiosity has led you to starting this other business that you're really starting to enjoy. I would love for you to take us through number one, when you made the jump full time to exit fully out of the life that wasn't aligned for you. And you also mentioned that the nervous system regulation is what really helped you. So I'm curious when that came online too and how those were like this interwoven path together.
Yeah. I wound up staying in sales through like 2013. I started my business full time in 2013. And the catalyst for starting my business was my daughter. So I wound up meeting somebody else. I really wanted to have kids. And so we started, I got pregnant with my first daughter, and he was an entrepreneur. So he understood the nature of how to run a business and all that kind of stuff for the most part. And so he was like, "You should do this. You have gifts, like you love this." And what really was happening when I had my daughter and I was thinking about going back to work and all of that kind of stuff, I was like, "Oh gosh, I don't want to be away from her."
Mhm.
But I had a job at that time. So I did have to go back to work. So what I did, which is sounds so bad, is I manifested that I would get laid off, because I knew without a shadow of a doubt, I was like, okay, I want to do this fair and square. I don't want to, like, I want to go back because I have to for all my maternity stuff. But if I could get laid off, then that would give me like a head start. I'll go start my business and all that. And so that's exactly what happened. But within like 2 weeks of me being back, I got called into the office. He was like, "Hey, I don't know how to tell you this. I feel so bad." And I was like, "Oh my God, please, 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 please." He's like, "We have to lay you off." And I was like, "Oh my God, yes." And so it was kind of a jump start. It's a weird thing to manifest, but it was a jump start to me starting my own business. So then I began doing sessions more and figuring out how that was all going to look. And I didn't know how to be an entrepreneur because I was always in corporate America. So I had a lot of learning to do. I hired many different coaches and all that kind of stuff to help. But my nervous system, learned how to start regulating my nervous system through those years, but especially when I was pregnant with my daughter, because I got put on bed rest and so many things happened. And that was when my intuition it was just so strong at that point, because I've been doing so many, I'd been in this space doing readings and listening to my own self. And my daughter, I was considered a geriatric pregnancy. So anytime you're pregnant over 35, you're considered a geriatric pregnancy, which is crazy. But I had to see a perinatologist because I was having issues with my pregnancy. And I will never forget, like, when I had to slow down and I had to kind of tune into my body. And I asked my body and asked her, as this baby being, I was like, "Are you safe?" Because everything was like, We don't know if you're going to make it past 20 weeks. We don't know if you'll make it past 24 weeks." It was terrifying. And every time I'd see the doctors, it was like, it wasn't a good feeling. And I was like, I need to be the creator of my reality, with, of course, with God. So I
Mhm.
tuned in, and my body was like, just slow down, use this bed rest to kind of, I was always a busy bee. I was always moving and doing all these things. And every single sales job I had was outside sales, going from place to place to place. So this was like the first time I got to just like chill and just be with myself. And I heard, and my daughter to this day is like, "You're crazy, mom." But I heard her say to me, "I'm fine. Like, nothing's wrong. Like, I will be good." And I'm like, "When will you come?" And she's like, "At 37 weeks." And so she came right at 37. And like, it was right in the middle, after 37, like right in the middle of that week, she came. And so I knew, I was like, "Oh my gosh, my intuition overrode what these doctors were saying." Like, I knew I was going to be fine. Right.
Mhm.
I knew that my connection to my body and to my baby was so important. And who knows if I overwrote a timeline of what it could have been. All I know is that I relaxed into my pregnancy and I just trusted. And I trusted the process and everything was fine. And so that was when I really started to work with my nervous system and be like, okay, the more safe I feel, the better results I'm going to get in my life overall.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a really powerful experience. And then I went full time into this work and I've never looked back. And I've been doing it for years now. And being an entrepreneur as a coach is a spiritual journey in of itself, right? Because we learn so much about our limiting beliefs or where we have fears of visibility or whatever it may be. And so there's a lot of stuff you have to overcome or override and reprogram because you're your own boss and nobody's going to tell you. It's either make it or break it, right? And so it's a very it's a journey into itself.
Absolutely. And what a beautiful message that came through for you. Just relax into it and trust the process. And
Yeah.
from there, it like unlocked a key. And I've felt that in my own journey where I would do pretty good at like future projecting of like, okay, what is it that I want in life? But then I would grip and I would try to control it and I would have contraction around it. And I feel the same way when I finally realized like it's up to me to create that own safety in my own body. And then from there, that grip and that control just naturally loosens. So during all of these sessions that you were doing, what are some of the big like aha moments and beliefs that started to shift for you of wow, like we really are the creator of our own reality. I really do have the power to recreate my life at any time that I want to. And then how did you start to envision your future with that belief of I can actually make this happen? I would love for you to speak on that.
Well, I've always had a unwavering belief that I can always make things happen. Like that is written into my DNA for whatever reason. I don't know why. It's probably why I do futuring work with my clients because I have so much faith and optimism for what's possible. And with, going through my whole life and all these different kind of things that have happened, it helped me to understand the way that you create a life, right? The way that you get to co-create, the way, like what's necessary. What are the necessary ingredients to create the outcome of what you want? And that is exactly, what I take my clients through and all that. But when I was doing sessions, I think the thing that really stood out to me, because at first they were very light and fluffy, it's like, oh, tell me about this, tell me about that. But as I was on this path, I started to see patterns.
Mhm.
And I saw some of the biggest patterns I realized was that people stay stuck and recreate their past unconsciously over and over again. And they just can't see it. And I even do it myself. Like, so I'm not saying like I've got it figured out and I'm not doing it. Everybody does it to some degree. So whatever in energetic and emotional environment, physical environment you grew up in, that is what feels safe to you, even if it wasn't safe. Even if your love story with your parents was they avoided you and they didn't want you or whatever, like that creates the makeup of how you are going to respond in life. And it's going to be in your relationships, it's going to be with work, with money, with your health, all these things. And so I think there comes a point in time where people get this incredible opportunity because they start to see a repeating pattern in their life of like, oh my gosh, I keep choosing unavailable men, or I keep choosing a toxic boss. Why is that? And it's like, well, let's get to the root of what that is. And so the work started to become very deep. And so I started to be able to see the patterns and the timelines of like what age they were when they gave up they gave up their authenticity or they decided that they weren't worthy of having what they wanted. And so when you start to see those things in a session, over and over and over again, then it's like you start to understand that like everybody, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter if you come from wealth or poverty or anything, we all come to this planet to learn. And the
Mhm.
first ability, the first classroom is our parents. And so everybody has this opportunity to rewrite that relationship, to reinterpret it. And that either people feel like they're victims of it and they're still blaming their parents. They're like, oh, because my parents did this, I'm this way. Or they're like, this happened. And I realized I needed to shift internally so that I could have the life that I want. And so I started to see people, having to work subconsciously, like work with their minds because people can't see their subconscious patterns. It's in their blind spots, right? I started to see how important it is to do somatic work to get people in their bodies because we brace in our physical bodies against life according to like what we were taught. So that has to be shifted too. I realized that people need to be empowered to trust their intuition, right? Like they have such strong intuition. I realize the more healthy somebody becomes, they start to move from surviving to thriving. Because so much of our lives, if we're in that survival, you don't have the bandwidth to be like, well, what are my gifts? What's my purpose? How am I supposed to
Yeah.
show up? And people might be like me, where they just have this like thing that motivates them to just keep moving and showing up and trying new things, or they might be afraid to do that, which is normal too, right? It's not everybody has that in them to be like, I'm just going to go try this out, or I'm just going to throw the hand grenade into my life. But regardless, right, there's an opportunity to heal forward, to decide, like, I want this over there. Like, I have this vision of what is possible for my life, and I want to become the version that can have that. And then that's the healing work. So, over all those years, what I saw over and over again is the exact recipe of what we need to heal in order to have what we want. And it changes and evolves over time. Because if you're an ambitious person like myself, you get what you want. I'm living with my dream man. Like I went through terrible relationships. I wound up leaving, my daughter's father. I My classroom has always been relationships. I have a PhD, I swear to God, in what not to do in relationships. And now, like I had to do so much healing work on myself to understand, why am I choosing this? What is this? But once I started to look at all these things and see what I was doing with my clients, right? Of course, I'm applying it to myself. And actually, everything I do, I have to experience first to understand what it feels like to go through that. And so I know what it's like to be in survival versus thriving. I know what it's like to get what you want. Like I had to win a huge court case and go through all these mountains, move mountains to get to be with my husband now that I live with. It wasn't like this, like, oh, I want to move to Idaho. I'm going to take my daughters. No, doesn't work like that. It was like I had to work on it for 2 years to get to here. And then when I got to here and I did all the healing work and everything, and I'm integrating it eventually to rise to my next level, I'm in a new set of looking at myself, new questions, new ways of being with myself. And it's not like this tiring journey where I'm always like, what's wrong? And I got to do it. It's not that at all. It's, I'm driven to have this vision, and who do I have to become in order for that to become a reality?
Mhm.
And so life is always asking us to get very curious and to look at ourselves and to be your own best friend. Like that's the one thing, if I could say to anybody, it's if you're not your own best friend, if you don't love yourself, if you don't have your own back, because you will make mistakes, especially if you're living a big life. Like I have lived a big life. Like I don't play small. And so when you live a big life, you're going to fall a lot too. It's not going to all be pretty, right? You're going to like be scraped up, banged up a little bit because you're going to be like, oh God, that didn't work. Oh, that thing I just tried in my business didn't work. Oh, that relationship didn't work. But who do you become through those processes and those experiences is the most important piece of it. It's the journey of becoming that allows us to receive who we really are. And I just love that. Like, I think that part of it, if we can see it as like, oh, I'm becoming more me as I grow older, getting to know who I really am. And you know that you asked that question earlier, Rachel. You're like, what were the questions you asked yourself to get to know yourself when you left your, that first relationship, that marriage? And I didn't even know back then, except to just keep going and living. And now it's taken me all this time to really, over the years, to keep deepening and to get to be in relationship with myself, to start to ask those questions, to slow down and not keep moving and running to the next thing, to get embodied in who I am and be like, wait a second, what am I doing? Why am I driven to do this? So much of this work to me is slowing down and sitting in the discomfort
Mm.
so that you don't just keep repeating it over and over. Yeah. So that's like a long answer to what I started to learn, because I started to see so many people. It was always interesting to me. I would have people that come back to me year after year
Mhm.
for reading, and I give them all this information. I'd be like on a silver platter, like, here it is. And then they come back to me the next year. Nothing had changed.
Oof.
Nothing had changed. And I was like, why is that? And I realized information is not enough.
No.
It doesn't create transformation. It's being in a container and being held, like, it doesn't matter who is holding you accountable, whether it's your personal trainer, your therapist, your coach, your partner, your spouse, whatever. When we're in relationship to something that, and we're wanting to take ownership of who we are, then we can kind of start to track, like, am I shifting? Am I changing? Am I evolving? But these people would get these readings and they just be like, okay, next year they'd be more. And I happened with one specific client. I love her, but it's one specific client for like 5 years in a row, to like, I got to a point where I was like, I don't feel right charging you for a reading if nothing's changed in your life.
Mhm.
And she was like, well, I just want you to tell me. And I go, but I keep telling you and nothing's changing. And I just started to feel bad about it. I was like, this isn't the purpose of my work. It's not to just deliver information and hope that maybe they'll do something with it. I was like, that's not what I want to be. I don't want to just deliver information. I actually want to help people transform and change.
Mhm.
And so I think anytime somebody is stepping out on a path of spirituality, like whether it's channeling, healing, coaching, whatever, it just like we evolve in our consciousness, the work evolves too.
I love that. So you definitely took us on a journey there. And something that sparked in me was you mentioned that where you are now, it took you a couple of years to get there. So I would love for you to speak on somebody who has a clear vision. They're doing the work, they're tapped in, tuned in, turned on, all of the things, and they just are not seeing it happen in their external reality, and it feels like it's dragging on and taking forever, and they're really trying to hold on to this belief of, I know this is meant for me, I know this is going to work out, and then they wobble, right? Because they're not seeing it reflected back to them that it's actually working. What advice would you have for somebody going through that?
It's such a great question, and it's so real, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because it's inevitable that that's going to happen. It will happen, and it means you're doing something right. Because when you're trying to shift your life, depending on how big it is, there's so much that is involved in that, right? You have to think differently. You have to take action differently. You have to hold that frequency. So I always tell my clients that when you claim the vision of what you want, to let go of the timeline and to trust the process, and trust that even if you feel like you're moving backwards, that very thing that's happening is trying to get you into alignment with the version of you that you need to be. It's like trying to refine you. Those challenges and obstacles that you're having to meet are the things that are going to prepare you to have what you want. And
Mm,
so it's counterintuitive, right? But that's why when you talk to people that have manifested really big things, they might have had to hold that frequency for a while. They might have had to come back to it sometimes and get re-excited by it and come back into faith and trust. And it's interesting because when I was going through that court process, it was about a year and it was financial. I had to like throw so much money into that without knowing what the outcome was going to be. And it was high stakes because it was my children and it was about wanting to be with the love of my life. And I remember so many times feeling doubt or getting scared. And so a lot of the things that I would do that really helped me that was very simple is like I would always rehearse how I wanted to feel when it was all over. Like I
mm.
would rehearse like hearing the judge say, "You can move." Or I would rehearse the relief of getting to actually do the move. Like I would be in the energy and get excited again because it's so easy to lose sight if something takes a while. But it's a bigger I think it's a really bigger spiritual game that we're playing because I look back, if I would have gotten what I wanted at the time that I thought I was supposed to get it, I wouldn't have been ready for it. And so I think sometimes a great perspective to hold is that if God, if somebody believes in God or the divine or the universe were to give you what you want at if it's not the right time, it's probably going to fall through your hands. Like you won't be able to sustain it. But if you trust the timing of it, that you're becoming and healing and doing all the work internally, then when you finally get it, it's like most likely it will stick, right? You'll have learned, you'll have been on that journey. So you are the vibrational match for it. And then you move forward and you never look back, right? So
Mhm.
I always think it would almost be a mean parent that gives if they give their kid every single thing they want, there becomes no appreciation, there becomes no understanding of it. So it's like looking at it as like this is like the most loving parent you could ever have is your relationship with the divine and trusting that that parent wants to give you everything but not all at once because it might
Right.
blow you out. You know what I mean? It could like affect you where you can't hold it. It's like I always think of those people that win the lottery.
I
It
know.
comes out of the blue, right? They're like, "Oh my god, I won the lottery." And they blow through it
Mhm.
so fast, typically, not all the time. But I think it's because they didn't do the work to hold that, right? They don't know how to be with that. So they wind up blowing through it versus somebody who's working to have that, right? And doing the proper steps. And so when they start to hit those numbers, it's like, okay, well, yeah, I've been working. Of course, I should be here, right? It's like
Mhm.
it kind of flows better. So I'm not saying it always has to be like that, and it doesn't always have to take a long time, but it's having the faith and trust that what you want wants you to, and it will come. And if it doesn't, and you're on the path, you will be realigned to the even better thing that God or the universe is trying to bring to you, anyways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's expanding your capacity to believe, trust, and receive. And earlier you mentioned how our intuition is like a muscle and you have to like work at it and pay it some attention and really like tune into the moments where, oh, my intuition, I did just lead me in the right way. And I'm curious what your thoughts are about like changing your beliefs, because I feel like a lot of this is also expanding your mind and just believing that all of this is meant to work out for you and believing that this is the way that I can manifest things into my reality. And so for somebody who right now is like they're working on shifting their beliefs, do you have any advice for them?
Mm. I would say, and this is so weird to say, but I think it's always coming back to some amount of playfulness with your life.
Mm,
If you're not having fun, if you're not enjoying this, then this heavy lifting of healing is going to feel like a drag. It's going to feel like you are doing all this heavy lifting and that there's like, and you're not seeing the result, right? So if you're in a state of trust, like a little kid that's just playing, right? They trust that they're going to be taken care of, that they're going to have food at the table, all these kinds of things. They're just curious, they're in wonder, they're in joy, and we lose sight of that. We really, really lose sight, and we get tense and contracted because we're like, I'm doing the work. I'm up at 5 a.m. I'm doing my morning routines. And it becomes like this checklist. And so much of this is frequency. So much of this is being open to what life wants to give you. And so to me, it's always coming back to that and the beliefs. If you have beliefs that are like, this will never happen for me, or money's never comes to me, or whatever, that is an echo of your past. That is something that needs to be looked at and to kind of figure out, like, where does this come from? Is this even mine, or is this my ancestors? So I love doing constellation work so much with my clients, because when you do constellation work, you realize you're repeating patterns and taking on beliefs of those who came before you.
Mhm.
So not everything you think is yours. And so it's just determining and getting discerning and saying, oh my gosh, is this really mine? And that's where it is helpful to work with practitioners that know how to do this kind of stuff. So you're not like just kind of circling and trying to figure it out. So if you can't rewire a belief on your own, that's when I would say, like, get some help with it. Like, don't suffer, and keep for years and years trying. Just nip it in the bud, go get hypnotherapy. There's so many different ways to do it through subconscious reprogramming, whatever. But I think that's what I would say is come back to play, and then notice if you can do it on your own. And if you can't do it on your own without support, then get the support, because
Mhm.
there's fairly simple processes to uncover where they come from and to start to shift them.
Absolutely. And I love that the healing journey is not something that you have to do because you're broken or bad. It's something you get to do to become these different iterations of you while you're playing on this planet. And for me, the two things that have truly changed my life and recreated my life over and over and over again, it's been following my curiosity and my joy. Get curious
Oh,
about what it is you believe, why you believe it, why your life looks the way it looks right now, what led you to that, and then what lights you up, what brings you joy. Like for me, a strict morning routine, I hate that. I don't do that at all. I
same.
just wake up and I'm like, if today I feel like having a cup of tea and quiet or listening to pretty music, that brings me joy. If I want to go for a little stroll, that brings me joy. So just get curious. And Dawn, I literally could talk to you all day, but I want to be respectful
Yes.
of your time. So I would love to open it up for anything that you have left on your heart to share with the people, anything about recreating your life or tapping into your intuition, whatever it may be. And I will share all of your links in the description below so people can get connected with you and your beautiful energy and your just massive amount of wisdom. So
Oh, thank you, honey. I would just leave it with, at any given point, we can change our lives. It only takes one day, one thing in your life can change. And I think the more intentional and open our hearts are, the more that we can get connected to that force, that force of the divine that wants to move through our lives and always bring us better than we can ever imagine. I just wish that everybody could know it's like it's better than you imagine. And our whole job in this life, I truly believe this, and I'm curious if I listen to this 20 years from now, if I would say the same thing, is to be your own best friend. It is to have your motherfucking back at every
mhm,
step of the way, to absolve and love every past decision you made, to get so freaking excited about what's possible for your future, and just to live and have fun. Like, have a good time, because the healing's going to come when you need it. Sometimes you don't have to do it. Sometimes we need to take breaks. It's not an always on process. And if anybody thinks that, they're doing it wrong. It's like, you'll know when you need to heal because you'll get like, it's like a clogged sink. Like the water's not going to flow. So if that happens, okay, it's time to let me go internal and start doing these things. But not every season of our life is meant for that. It's just not. And to trust the seasons of your life. Some are just for integration and just to like be. And others are like, oh, I'm exploring and who am I right now? and just to follow that flow, because life will be much simpler that way.
Mm, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing yourself and your knowledge and your wisdom with myself and the community. This has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Likewise. Likewise. It's been so fun.
If you're feeling called to recreate your life in 2026 and not do it alone, I want to invite you into the Rise and Recreate portal. It's a community for people who are ready to release old patterns, reconnect to themselves, and consciously create what's next. Inside, we gather for guided ceremonies where we set intentions, we rewire our subconscious, and we have honest conversations all designed to help you trust yourself, take aligned action, and actually build a life that feels like yours. Right now, you can join for half off your first month, so it's the perfect time to step in, get supported, and recreate your life alongside people who truly get it. You'll find the link below, and I would love to see you in there.